Most people think the future will arrive loudly. New devices, new wars, new crises. But Machiavelli would instantly understand that the real danger of 2026 is subtle. Quiet systems, invisible scoring, silent influence shaping behavior without ever asking permission. He would not fear this world. He would recognize it. And this is exactly where Rule 1 begins. Rule 1 is about becoming an algorithmic ghost. Machiavelli would immediately see that modern power does not attack openly. It predicts, it categorizes, it nudges. Algorithms do not need to hate you to control you. They only need to understand you well enough. Your routines, your emotional cycles, your habits at night, your reactions under pressure. Most people hand this information over freely and call it self-expression. Machiavelli would see it as self-sabotage. He would understand that the moment a complete behavioral model is built around you, your freedom quietly ends. So he would never give the system a stable version of himself. He would vary his rhythms intentionally, sometimes highly visible, sometimes completely silent, sometimes responsive, sometimes unreachable. Not randomly, never randomly, always with purpose. The goal would not be chaos, the goal would be uncertainty. Because uncertainty breaks prediction, and prediction is the foundation of control. A man who cannot be mapped cannot be steered. A woman who cannot be categorized cannot be easily manipulated. Machiavelli would move just enough to remain present, but never enough to become fully legible. He would also understand something modern people ignore. Consistency feels safe, but it is dangerous. The algorithm loves consistency. It feeds on it. Machiavelli would break small patterns deliberately, change timing, change tone, change pace. Not to confuse humans, but to confuse machines. Humans read intention. Machines read repetition. He would give humans coherence and give machines noise. That balance would make him invisible to the system while remaining influential in the real world. Then Rule 2 would emerge naturally. Weaponized apathy. Machiavelli knew that emotions are powerful, but only when controlled. In 2026, outrage is engineered, fear is amplified, and excitement is manufactured on demand. Most people believe reacting quickly makes them relevant. Machiavelli would know it makes them predictable. Every emotional outburst is a data point. Every public reaction feeds a profile. He would refuse to react on schedule. This does not mean he would feel nothing. It means he would feel privately and act selectively. Silence would become his shield. Apathy would become his armor. When everyone is angry, the calm person has leverage. When everyone is celebrating, the detached observer sees risk. Machiavelli understood that power does not belong to those who feel the most, but to those who choose when to reveal feeling. Strategic indifference starves systems that survive on engagement. When you do not react, you force others to reveal themselves. Their impatience, their insecurity, their need for validation. In a monitored world, the most dangerous person is not the loud rebel. It is the quiet individual who cannot be emotionally provoked. Machiavelli would master this. He would let others burn energy while he conserved it. Energy saved becomes power later. Rule 3 moves deeper into psychology, the synthetic mirror. Machiavelli would notice that modern people are not desperate to understand others. They are desperate to be seen, to be validated, to be reflected back to themselves. He would use this perfectly. He would listen more than he speaks, agree just enough to feel safe, disagree just enough to feel intelligent. He would reflect people's beliefs back to them without ever fully committing to them himself. This creates a powerful illusion. People feel understood, they feel close, they feel chosen. And in that comfort, they reveal everything. Their fears, their ambitions, their weaknesses, their resentments. Machiavelli would collect information without appearing curious, influence without appearing dominant. The mirror never reveals its own shape. It only shows others what they want to see. And while they are busy talking, projecting, confessing, Machiavelli would remain partially concealed. Modern culture confuses openness with honesty. Machiavelli never made that mistake. He knew that selective disclosure creates leverage. When others feel emotionally naked and you remain dressed, you control the temperature of the room. Rule 4 introduces structure, outsourcing the dirty work. Machiavelli despised unnecessary exposure. In 2026, power rarely shows its face. Systems decide, policies reject, algorithms demote, processes enforce. He would never be the visible source of harm or denial. He would design environments where outcomes happen automatically, where consequences appear neutral, where no single person can be blamed. When someone is harmed by a system, anger dissolves into confusion. Confusion prevents retaliation. Machiavelli would let procedures do what direct action would make dangerous. He would remain polite, distant, untouchable. This is not weakness, this is insulation. The most powerful figures in modern systems are rarely the loudest. They are the least traceable. Rule 5 is about the black box. Machiavelli understood that mystery creates authority, not confusion. When people fully understand your reasoning, they feel equal to you. When they don't, they hesitate, and hesitation is power. In a world obsessed with transparency, Machiavelli would protect opacity like armor. He would speak clearly about actions, but vaguely about motives. He would describe outcomes, not intentions. He would allow others to guess why he moved the way he did. This does something subtle to the human mind. When people cannot read your motivation, they project depth. They slow down. They second guess. And in that pause, control shifts. Machiavelli would never argue unnecessarily. He would let silence do the heavy lifting. Modern people believe clarity builds trust. Machiavelli knew mystery builds caution. And cautious people are easier to manage than confident ones. He would also understand that over-explaining is often driven by fear. Fear of being misunderstood, disliked, or judged. Machiavelli never allowed those fears to guide him. He would accept misunderstanding if it protected leverage. The black box is not about lying. It is about containment. When your inner logic is inaccessible, your position becomes harder to attack. Rule 6 moves into emotional warfare, artificial empathy. Machiavelli would immediately notice how modern culture worships empathy while misunderstanding it completely. Empathy today is often performative. People display emotion to signal virtue. Machiavelli would do the opposite. He would use empathy strategically. He would listen carefully, mirror emotions precisely, acknowledge pain without validating conclusions. This creates a powerful imbalance. People feel emotionally supported, but not empowered to challenge him. They feel safe, but not equal. Machiavelli would never let emotions dictate decisions, but he would never ignore emotions either. He understood that people don't follow logic. They follow how you make them feel. Artificial empathy allows you to guide behavior without force, influence without confrontation. In 2026, emotional intelligence is currency. Machiavelli would spend it carefully. He would never overshare, never emotionally dump, never seek validation. People who seek emotional support lose authority. People who provide it gain quiet control. He would comfort without bonding, understand without attaching, and guide without appearing dominant. Rule 7 is where Machiavelli becomes nearly impossible to read. The calculated glitch. Modern systems, both human and algorithmic, rely on patterns. Machiavelli would intentionally introduce small inconsistencies. Nothing dramatic, nothing destructive, just enough to break expectation models. A delayed response here, a change in tone there, a decision that slightly contradicts a previous one, but not enough to look unstable. This does two things at once. Humans interpret this as authenticity, Machines interpret it as noise. Both fail to categorize him properly, and when categorization fails, control weakens. Machiavelli understood that perfection is suspicious. Slight imperfection creates cover. The calculated glitch makes you seem human while remaining strategically unreadable. Most people try to be consistent to build trust. Machiavelli would build trust through presence, not predictability. Predictability is the enemy of freedom. When others think they understand you, they stop watching closely. That is when real movement happens. Rule 8 goes deeper than behavior. It targets the nervous system itself. Dopamine withdrawal. Machiavelli would instantly recognize modern addiction. Notifications, likes, praise, engagement, approval. Most people are not controlled by force. They are controlled by stimulation. Machiavelli would step away deliberately, not permanently, but long enough to regain sensitivity. Silence would become training. Boredom would become discipline. When you are no longer desperate for feedback, you regain internal authority. People who need constant validation are easy to manipulate. People who can sit quietly become dangerous. Machiavelli would use withdrawal to reset perspective, sharpen focus, and regain independence from the emotional economy. He would return selectively, on his terms. When presence becomes intentional instead of habitual, it gains weight. People notice. Systems hesitate. Attention controlled internally cannot be hijacked externally. Rule 9 is about the necessary monster. Machiavelli never believed that goodness automatically produces peace. He believed peace comes from clarity. In a world where boundaries are soft and consequences are delayed, chaos thrives. Machiavelli would act decisively when lines are crossed. Not emotionally, not loudly, precisely, once. He understood that repeated tolerance teaches people how far they can go. One controlled display of strength prevents endless testing later. Modern people fear being labeled harsh. Machiavelli feared being ineffective. He would accept temporary fear if it created long-term stability. The mistake people make is confusing cruelty with firmness. Cruelty is uncontrolled harm. Firmness is intentional force applied at the right moment. Machiavelli would return to calm immediately after. No lingering anger, no justification tour, just silence. That contrast creates authority. People do not fear the monster that rages. They fear the one that chooses when to act. Rule 10 moves into betrayal, the Judas kiss. Machiavelli would never romanticize loyalty. He would understand that people follow interests, not promises. When interests change, behavior changes. Betrayal would not shock him. It would confirm his model. And when betrayal happens, Machiavelli would do something that feels unnatural to modern people. He would respond with composure. Publicly, he would forgive. Calmly, even warmly. Privately, he would reposition. He would remove access, adjust dependencies, shift incentives. Revenge feels satisfying, but it exposes emotion. Adjustment preserves power. Machiavelli knew that the best response to betrayal is not punishment, it is irrelevance. When someone realizes their actions no longer matter, the lesson is permanent. Rule 11 is where Machiavelli masters time itself. Reality, distortion. He understood that people do not experience events directly. They experience narratives about events. Whoever frames the story controls memory. In 2026, truth competes with repetition. Machiavelli would speak early, calmly, and consistently. He would define meaning before emotions explode. While others argue passionately, he would repeat the same framing quietly. Over time, resistance weakens. Facts fade. The story remains. Machiavelli would never chase public approval. He would let time do the persuasion. Time favors the composed. Rule 12 is adaptation, the chameleon skin. Machiavelli would never tie himself to rigid identity labels. Political, moral, cultural. Labels simplify you for others. Simplification leads to control. He would adapt tone, language, and posture depending on environment without ever abandoning objective. Modern people confuse consistency with integrity. Machiavelli never did. Integrity is alignment with purpose. Appearance is a tool. He would sound progressive in one room, traditional in another, neutral in a third. Not because he lacks beliefs, but because he refuses to turn beliefs into cages. The chameleon survives because it understands context better than color. Rule 13 is the final rule, and the one most people reject, the amoral outcome. Machiavelli judged actions by results, not intentions. In 2026, systems reward effectiveness. Moral signaling is decoration. He would do what works first, then allow others to debate whether it was right. Survival comes before validation. Stability before applause. This does not make him evil, it makes him realistic. Machiavelli never denied morality, he simply refused to let it blind him. A world that punishes honesty and rewards performance must be navigated, not moralized. And here is where Shadow Whisper speaks directly to you. If this feels uncomfortable, it means you are still thinking in moral fantasies instead of strategic realities. Most people believe freedom means expression, but expression that is predicted is not freedom. Choice that is guided is not autonomy. If you've stayed until now, you're not here for entertainment, you're here for clarity. Write "aware" in the comments so others can find you. Share this with someone who still believes visibility equals power. And remember this quietly, without drama. The future will not belong to the loud. It will not belong to the righteous. It will belong to those who understand the system well enough to move through it unseen while shaping its outcomes. This is Shadow Whisper.